They want to have enough money to retire. They want to be able to afford what they want to afford. I would say almost everyone would agree with that. But what most people or some people don't understand is some of their thinking is going to get them there and some of their thinking may not. And all I want you guys to do is, as far as your thinking goes, is to challenge yourself on where am I thinking in a way that's going to get me from where I am to where I want to be? And where am I thinking in a way that could be absolutely devastating? How you think and the questions you ask gets you from where you are to where you want to be.
Hi, I'm Annette Ba'u, host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast and founder of the Millionaire Insider. My mission is to help you simplify the money game so you can create a financially secure and fulfilled life without having to have a PhD or spend countless hours on your finances. You're going to learn how to think like a millionaire, stop worrying about money and wondering if your financial house is truly in order, and instead spend your time doing what you love. With over 3 decades advising 7, 8, and even 9-figure millionaires, and now joining that elite group, I'm in a unique position to help you make the best financial choices so you can create a secure financial future and retirement you love. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast.
Today's episode is for Pamela H., Sherry H., Lori B., Kimberly C., Lisa P., and all my clients and friends who challenge me to be the best person I can be. As the Philadelphia Eagles football coach shared, you can't be great without the greatness of others. Oh, what a great statement. My entire life has been and will continue to be dedicated to helping people secure their financial future. As you know, I personally dislike everything about politics and everything that comes with it. That said, I will continue to do my part to help you secure your financial future. And if that means diving into some topics that might be sensitive, then I'm going to do that. Today's free resource is our Millionaire Mindset Guide. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/MMG. This resource is literally everything I have learned from multimillionaires about financial freedom. And what I love about it is it teaches you how to think. You know, if you want to get to your next financial step, you've got to think differently. You've got to ask better questions. You've got to do the heavy lifting to hear information you may not want, information that may challenge what you believe. And then from that, get the factual insight and then make a decision. The problem with most people is the vast majority of people make decisions based on their primal brain, based on emotion versus their prefrontal cortex. It's not saying that you can't make a decision based on kind of like how you're feeling, but when you're making a decision based on a primal instinct or a fear instinct or, oh my gosh, a scarcity instinct, something like that, it's never ideal. So this guide is going to help you to really look at where you are right now, what you need to shift. So more importantly, you can get to where you want to go. So again, themillionaireinsider.com/MMG. For today's show notes, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/99. Millionaireseries.com copyrights all materials and intellectual property. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide any investment, financial, tax, retirement planning, or healthcare advice. So I've had several questions. They include, what am I thinking? Should I be concerned? And what should I do? Now, as you go through the episode today, because whenever I dive into topics that can be somewhat triggering or controversial, I want to let you know up front. Now, what I encourage you to do as we go through this is just see where you get triggered. If I start saying something that triggers you, I really want you to look at that, because what I find more than anything is that when you get information that triggers you, a lot of times it's a blind spot. It's an area where we do need to look at and say, okay, what about that triggered me? And dive a little deeper. It's really interesting how not all multimillionaires, but a lot of multimillionaires, and I think especially people that are in the top 1 or 2% of this country, think differently. And I'm talking about ones that have morals and values and ethics. I'm not talking about, ones that, would sell their mother or baby if they could get money. The difference is they ask the tough questions.
they want information, not necessarily information that just supports their beliefs. Now, clearly there are ones that are caught up in whatever they want to be fed, they're being fed. And I see that on both sides. Whatever they want to hear is what they're focused in on. What I find right now, and I'm going to be brutally honest, so if you can't handle this, tune it out and check in next week. But what I find out from people that are on the really conservative side is they are just ignoring a lot of things that are going on. Like, everything's great. And, when you start looking, not through right or left, but through financial publications, through centrist publications, through publications that are not political, there's a lot of things that are concerning. And it doesn't have anything to do with politics. So if you're thinking everything's great, and the fact that, our sensitive data has been, who knows where it is, it's been accessed, our social security number, our dates of birth, medical records, now it looks like it's going to probably even be the IRS, depending on how that transforms. There's a lot of concern. Now, you probably already know this, hopefully, from whoever's giving you financial advice. So you're already taking steps to protect yourself on that front. I see that on one end, like, oh, everything's great, and just kind of ignoring the concerning areas. And then on the other side, what I see is that people are in such a panic and so concerned about it that they're in a state of inertia. They're not taking action. They're not doing the things they can do. Seeing people losing their jobs. I'm even seeing vets that aren't getting paid their checks. And I mean, all of it's disturbing. I get it. But the reality of it is you've got to get to a point where you start taking action. And you say, okay, if you don't have this income coming in, how are you going to fix that? And how are you going to cut back on your living expenses? And so I see two different fronts on this reacting differently, and I don't think either is ideal. As somebody who is very moderate in my politics, I really dislike politics. I'm more fiscally conservative and more socially conscious. From that standpoint, I can see it a lot clearer because I'm not attached into any one realm. That said, my entire life and job is about protecting my clients and doing the absolute best I can do for them based on the information I get. And I think that's one thing that has caused me to become much more moderate, is realizing this isn't just about me and what I would benefit from, but really how does it impact my clients and you, my listener. I want you and your family to be financially secure, and I will do everything in my part to help you get there. So I'm going to dive into some different aspects of how I'm thinking, and then some areas that you can listen to and see if you are concerned or how that works for you. And then at the end, give you some action steps on what you should do. So this is going to be an interesting episode. I really debated doing this. It's like, oh, I just do not want to deal with it. Like, it's one of those things where I'm like, oh God, I just don't. But I really would not be doing you a service or anyone I serve if I just ignored this, or I just focused in on what would really benefit me and my family. So I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. And again, if you are easily triggered or you are extreme in your views, you're not going to probably like today's episode. So you can just tune out, and we'll check back in next week where we're going to dive into fraud prevention and specifically what you need to do to protect your credit, to make sure that you are safe now that it looks like a lot of our confidential information has been accessed and no real insight on where it is or who has access to it. When you do an audit, you hire a forensic accountant, a vetted forensic accountant. I don't like to hear that you are hiring a 19-year-old hacker. It's like those two just don't jive well with me. And I don't know why they need to have access to all of our sensitive data that they are not vetted to have. I mean, a lot of people are concerned that the government has access to all of their information, but now we've got people who aren't even vetted with the government having access to it. So there's reason to be concerned on that front. So let's dive in. I've had several questions about the allegations of sensitive financial information, DOGE,
has accessed, including one that is a known hacker. And I have also researched extensively and tapped into others who have provided important information. As of this recording, many of you may know that the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, has been dismantled. The CFPB helps consumers by providing educational materials as well as accepting complaints. As of this recording, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has collected almost $20 billion in consumer relief, meaning making consumers that have been subject to fraud whole. It supervises banks, lenders, and large non-bank entities such as credit reporting agencies and debt collection agencies. Obviously, many of us feel that it makes sense to have more efficiency in our government and to be aware of what's happening. One of the things I see people getting confused on is there is the issue of fraud, where people are actually stealing money or money is bogusly being paid. For example, an ashtray that costs like $5, they're marketing up to $500. I mean, we've all heard the stories, right? And so I'm just going to go out on a limb and say most of us would agree that's ridiculous. If an ashtray costs $5, you need to pay $5 for the ashtray. And so I think a lot of that people are really frustrated by because, in essence, we're paying for that. And it's just something that you wouldn't go into a store and pay $500. And in essence, that's what's happening when the government's taking our money and using it for fraudulent things or something that's inappropriate. So that's one venue. And then the other issue is overspending. The concern I have, obviously, you're going to get to know me a lot better today and to know my views. But my thought processes on overspending is the fact that the system that's broke is more with Congress, because the issue is that to get a bill passed, my understanding, and I'm not a congressional expert, but my understanding is that to get a bill passed, a lot of times what happens is this is the bill, and then to get it passed and get enough support, you have to add things in. Where a lot of the controversy occurs, I mean, obviously it occurs on both fronts, but a lot of people are fed up with all that extra stuff that goes into a bill. And clearly, I agree, something's got to be figured out. The problem is that if you're liberal, you want money spent on this, and if you're conservative, you want money spent over here. One of the things I find fascinating about what's happening right now is they're mixing fraud and overspending as if it's one big thing, and it's not. Fraud is illegal. Fraud is really theft, and overspending is more subjective. Now, you may say, Annette, no, I mean, look at this. You can't be sending money here. You can't be doing that. If it was approved by Congress, that's the law. Now, I'm not saying I agree with it. And I'm not saying that if I went in there just like you, we could say that should go, that should go, that should go. What I'm most concerned about more than anything is the fact that we have to have some laws and some systems in place. Otherwise, you have a lawless society and you're going to have chaos. And getting rid of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau could be a problem. And the reason I say it could be a problem is, I work with a lot of clients who are older, 70s, 80s, and even 90s. And fraud is such a problem right now. Now, as it is right at this moment, now this could change any minute. The Bureau is no longer accepting complaints. And my understanding from what has been reported is that the employees have been ordered to stop working on any cases. I did have one client who's in an industry that deals with credit. And he said that he felt that they've been overreaching. So maybe they have been overreaching in some places and maybe they need to dial it back. But to go from having it being extreme to having nothing, to me, is not the answer. Last night, I watched a couple of different channels just to see what they're reporting. And they actually were interviewing some of the employees that have been told, don't come to work, don't work on anything, we're dismantling. I'm concerned about it. And I'm concerned about it because these are the watchdogs that make sure that people are not doing things that are fraudulent. And ironically, and again, go do your own research. X is being investigated by this very department. I've heard that from like 3 different sources. So that's curious. And then the second one is that if anyone's following, X now has an agreement with Visa because they want to start being a payment platform. And again, this bureau would be investigating anything they did. Now, I don't care whether it's Elon Musk, X, or it's someone else. My point being is that I don't like having the person that's making these decisions and the person impacting them being one that is benefiting from not having it. Like if it was a third party and they decided, okay, they need to be thinner, leaner, meaner, and it was benefiting you, my listeners, and my clients, and really everyone, I'd be all in. But when I start hearing things like that and I start thinking, oh my gosh, this could impact so many of my clients. Just last week, one of my clients, she got a call and it had the name of the brokerage firm. Now, whether it's a bank or brokerage firm, most people know those names, right? So what they say they do is they call, they have a number that says it's calling from this organization. He said, you got to call me back immediately regarding your account. Well, make a long story short, it was fraud. Unfortunately, now, as it stands right now, it could change tomorrow, that entity has been dismantled. And I do not see that as a plus for you, my listeners, or for my clients. One of the things I encourage you guys to think about, which is just a thought process, is that the thinking that gets you to become a millionaire is different than the thinking that gets you to become, say, worth $100,000. The thinking that gets you to be worth $10 million net worth is different than the thinking that gets you to be worth $1 million. And the one thing I would encourage you to think about on your journey is the fact that what questions should you be asking to get to that next level? Now, some of you may not want to have a net worth of 10 million. My point being is it's how you think and the questions you ask gets you from where you are to where you want to be. And I think a lot of people don't think that way. But what I see where people get themselves into a rabbit hole and really are going to have problems or are having problems is where they're so caught up in the primal brain emotional response of what they want. And they don't have an ability to basically say, okay, fine, I get that I want this, but what is the outcome or what would this look like if it's the other extreme? And that's why at some level we have to follow the laws. I get the excitingness of treating the government like a startup. That said, I think you have to be really careful about the fact that you don't unwind it to the point of where it causes absolute chaos and it destroys some of the core foundations that are in place. I mean, that will be insanity. And we're already seeing theft. It's amazing the reports I'm seeing about theft. I mean, in fact, just last night, people can't afford eggs. So what happened? I don't know how anyone could steal 100,000 eggs, but that's what happened last night. And then they were talking about people going into stores and stealing them. If we don't have some process, that's a problem. Now, I do agree totally that having more pressure on senators to listen to people and to work together to benefit us is huge. One of the biggest concerns to me, and hopefully it is to you too, is the fact that we now have a trifecta. The advantage of having a trifecta, in my opinion, is the fact that we can start having conversations about, okay, let's reduce the deficit. A trifecta with the Republican Party, in my eyes, should be discussions about how are we going to reduce the deficit. I have not heard literally any politicians talking about that. They're talking about finding fraud, finding waste, but it's really all about then the $6 trillion spending package they have. And my question, and I hope it's yours too, is what is being done about this deficit that's out of control? I hear people talking about it, but I don't hear any politicians. So those are the things I want you guys to think about, because these are things that are going to dramatically impact every one of us. And they're conversations that, in my opinion, need to be had, that the politicians need to be having, and we need to be holding them accountable.
It doesn't get more real time than this. This is why you have to stay on top of it, or you have to have an advisor that's helping you stay on top of your finances. But they just announced that James Fishback, who's the CEO of the investment firm Azoria, raised the idea of a DOGE dividend. And his memo was suggesting that if they get the $2 trillion back, that they should give each American $5,000. And then there was also the discussions about
giving 20% of the money that they get from DOGE to American citizens and then 20% to pay down the debt. Now, it's going to be interesting, to see what happens, right? Because originally they were promoting that they were going to cut $2 trillion. But I believe as of right now, the contracts they've cut have been about $8.5 billion. DOG claimed that it had cut $8 billion from a contract when actually it was $8 million. So again, you just got to stay on top of this. Real time, it's changing. Maybe that's a good thing. They're giving people that are struggling money, and they're also reducing the deficit. So that could be a major plus.
As you go through this, what I want you to do is just be really thinking about your blind spots, because your blind spots are going to be areas that could wreak havoc in your financial life. And what I want you to do is to ask questions that challenge what you think. Like, the one thing I do really well is I love being challenged with facts. I don't want to hear hearsay of, I think this is true. I don't like this. I don't like that. I get it. We all have opinions. And it's not that you can't share your opinions. But what I'm really interested in, especially when it comes to your money and it comes to me making decisions to help people make the best financial choices possible, you got to look at facts, and you've got to have some semblance in there of the law. Otherwise, you have pure chaos. And all you have is basically, we go from one president who does whatever they want to another president who does whatever they want. And one's on an extreme conservative line, one's on a really liberal line. I think we can all see flaws in that. And the reason I want you guys to think like that is because I think as citizens, we have a lot more power than we realize. And when we step up and stand up and come to the table and start having conversations about what we can do to really make things better, that's when things change. And I think a lot of what's going on right now from both sides is that they're more focused on getting you to be, I'm right, you're wrong, or let's fight, versus how can we come up with some solutions that really work. And I hope all of you get that. And I hope it really challenges you. Most people, whatever they want to happen in their future to happen. So for example, they want to have enough money to retire. They want to be able to afford what they want to afford. I would say almost everyone would agree with that. But what most people or some people don't understand is the fact that some of their thinking is going to get them there and some of their thinking may not. And all I want you guys to do is, as far as your thinking goes, is to challenge yourself on, where am I thinking in a way that's going to get me from where I am to where I want to be? And where am I thinking in a way that could be absolutely devastating? The fascinating thing is that most people are not wired that way. And that's one thing that I will say, not about all multimillionaires, but a lot of us, is the fact that we have an ability to listen and think. And like, one of the things that really hit me today, as I was just getting bombarded with emails and information, and even on social media, because I've been challenging things. I don't like to stay out of politics, and some of it's political and some of it's not, but I really like to challenge people's thinking. Like, what are you thinking? And what I realized is the fact that most people are replacing fraud and theft with overspending on things they don't want the government spending money on. Those are two completely separate issues. I'm not saying they're not both important. I think they both are. An opinion on what we should spend money on is very different than fraud going on. Recently, I had a conversation with somebody, and he's a very smart guy, and we've known each other forever. And he said something to me, and it was funny because he and I agree on probably about, I would say, I don't know, maybe 80 to 85% of topics we are in alignment on. And he said something about, well, there's so many things we don't agree on. And I go, really? Would you say that? I think we agree on a lot of things. He goes, well, I guess we do. I go, the difference is I'm seeking information that challenges what I believe. You're not. You're looking for information that supports what you believe. And it was like dead silent. And he's like, wow, like he had not thought about that. If we're not looking at different sources of information and all we're being fed is everything that they're doing right and nothing they're doing wrong, and everything they're doing wrong and nothing right, that's what causes the situation we're in. And unfortunately, that's how civilization unravels. Probably my biggest concern in all this, as far as you're thinking, is the fact that, I love being wealthy. I love having money. I also am smart enough to know that if you continue making those of us that have money wealthier and people that don't poor, and there's no opportunity to get ahead, you've got a revolution on your hands and you're going to have serious problems. Nothing good comes from that. And so that's where I just challenge you guys, think. I want you to think. And all I want you to do is say, is the information I'm getting only what I want to be fed? The fascinating thing is that wherever you're getting your media outlet source, especially if it's politically driven, is to support your beliefs. And I don't care whether you're on the right or left. I think the reality of it is that people want information that they can identify with. All I want to encourage you to do, my friend, is to get some information that maybe you don't agree with and then analyze it. Just analyze it. And it might be regarding money. It might be regarding politics. It might be regarding the economy, but challenge yourself. What I love about having information, especially if it's factual. Now, that's really important. Now, factual, I mean, I don't want somebody just saying this is their opinion. I want there to be some source of verification. And that's where you have to do the work. And ideally, if you're around really smart people, when you get information, then you can go to a couple sources and find out the information as compared to one opinion, one source, or this person said it, therefore it's true. It's just fascinating that how if somebody says one thing, now people believe it's true. And so again, don't let that be you. Really take the time to think about it.
What I want to do now is to give you some takeaways. One of the things that I had a lot of questions on is what should I do? So I want to give you some ideas on what you can do, and then you can make the final decision of what will work best for you and your family. So number one, I think more important than anything is your mental health. And I encourage you to create a daily routine. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Mine includes starting with meditation, focused breathing. Then I do yoga. I do 30 minutes of restorative yin yoga, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of kundalini. And then I do silent meditation again to end my yoga practice, which is known as shavasana. It's also helpful to include chants, positive prayer, and then exercise. I do 10,000 steps a day. In addition to the yoga I also do weight training 3 times a week. And I do find that to be so helpful. I also find going into a sauna as well as into an ice bath is very helpful. Now, if you don't have an ice bath, which I don't, I just fill the tub up at night and then in the morning I go into it. It feels like an ice bath to me. And up at our cabin, it feels colder than an ice bath. So again, you can improvise if you don't have an actual ice bath. And then make your diet and health a priority. Eating as healthy as you can. If you can afford to get organic food, get organic food. If you can't, then search the Dirty Dozen or the 12 fruits and vegetables you should avoid eating if they're not organic. There are different lists, like what I'm looking at right here says strawberries, but it doesn't say blueberries. So just be aware of that. And then there are some that are okay to eat if they're not organic. But again, just make sure you're eating healthy. Getting adequate sleep is huge. So plan your day the evening before, get to bed early. I like to go to bed with a real deep meditation. I really like the concept of what Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches. I think he takes meditation to a whole nother level, and he really helps you rewire your brain, which I think could benefit a lot of people, especially right now. I then go to bed, have adequate time to just relax, go to bed, and then wake up without an alarm clock, which I find huge, and then start my day with focused breathing, and then my yoga, and then my exercise. And just make sure that you've got a plan down for that. So number one is your daily routine. Number two, I think you need to create your financial plan. If you don't have a financial plan, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/FFG for our financial freedom formula guide. That will help you. Or you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/SR for support-request. But both of those will help you to create a plan. Right now, having a plan, a financial plan, in my opinion, is paramount to what's going on. And then number three, you want to secure your income. And I encourage you to really focus in on creating residual and passive income, different sources of income. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/RIG for our residual income guide. But that's going to help you think about how you can start creating residual income streams like millionaires do. And some of you, may not be ready to have 7 of them, which is what the average millionaire has, but maybe you have 2. Just do something about your income so that you're not worried about not having enough income to support you and your family. Number 4 is to cut expenses. Cut everything out that is non-essential. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/MBT to access our magical budget template, but that separates out wants and needs. Some of you that would like a grassroots effort, you can participate in the February 28th Economic Blackout Day by refraining from buying goods from major retailers for 24 hours. If you do have to buy something, just buy local. The movement is dedicated to economic resistance, government accountability, and corporate reform. And I think it would be good for any time. Personally, I would like to have the government become a little more accountable. I want them to be transparent. I want them to be accountable. I'm all about, being aware of where we're spending money, being efficient, but I also want it to be done in a way that's not reckless, in a way that holds people accountable and looks at what they can do that benefits the American people. That means you, your family. The founder of the group, which is the People's Union, is John Schwartz, and he said it's not affiliated with any political party. It's to unite Americans against the corruption and greed that has kept us struggling for decades. I have people that are participating in February 28th. I have a lot of clients, actually. Some of them are doing it in relating to the economy, the cost of goods. One is wanting more transparency with the government and specifically what DOJ is doing. And I will say this much. I just read an article this morning with all these town hall meetings, and especially in red conservative areas, they're getting so much backlash because so many of them are now getting impacted by people in rural areas that are losing their jobs, that they're demanding answers. And so the article I read, we're talking about the different congressmen that are now starting to ask some more questions about DOGE. So hopefully that'll help to get more transparency. People are doing it for a lot of different reasons. I encourage you to look into it. If it's something that resonates with you, then I would encourage you to join it. I just love the concept of this. We've got to get, I don't know if I'd use the term economic resistance, I would say more economic efficiency, balance, or economic opportunities as compared to resistance. Government accountability, I love, absolutely love, and then corporate reform. You have people not able to afford goods, and you have CEOs earning multi-millions. It's just, there's a big discrepancy there. So I get it. So anyway, so that's an option. If that sounds something like that you're interested in, I encourage you to look it up. And then there's also No by 2025, which is more of a movement really as far as resistance. My recommendation as far as purchases and as far as cutting down your expenses is just the fact that we don't know what's going to be coming down the pipeline. There are a lot of indicators and reports that we could very likely go into a recession just because of immigration as well as tariffs. We're already seeing it in Arizona, the impact in the real estate market as well as in food industries. We just went to our favorite sushi restaurant on Sunday night, and oh my gosh, talk about a disaster. Literally got some of our food and we had to wait another 40 minutes to get the rest of it. They took 25% off literally everyone's check. I was just hearing all these people were like, when are we getting our food? When are we getting our food? And they're like, we don't have any help. We don't have any help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's happening, my friends, and it's gonna probably get worse before it gets better. That said, they've already talking about how this is impacting, meat packing in Nebraska. It's gonna have an impact. It's gonna not only raise the cost of food, but it's likely gonna increase inflation and then add tariffs into that. it's very unlikely that we're not going to see an economic downturn. We've had a couple of days where the market has literally dropped significantly. People are freaking out. My friends, the market has not adjusted since 2008. Regardless of who's president, it's going to adjust. That said, when you start adding on things such as, just mass deportation without any plan to figure out who's going to do those jobs or how that's going to affect the food supply, the real estate market, all of that, you got to pay attention. And then as far as tariffs go, a lot of people think that the country that's sending the goods in pays the tariff, when in reality, it's us that pays the tariff. And a lot of people say, well, great, I don't want to buy Chinese things. Well, if you have a stove, a microwave, a telephone, a car, really any electronic, some portion of it is made in China. So the concept of buying locally, I think a lot of us would do. I would do it in a heartbeat. The issue is just you got to have the supply, and it's not there. And that's why you start looking at it and you think, okay, if they start making it, it's going to be significantly higher. It gets back to the whole concept of people who can't afford things. So there's a lot that goes into that. And it would be great if you could get people on both sides of the aisle to come together and really figure out a solution that could really benefit us. My 2 cents, but go check them out and see if one of those resonates with you. And then number 5, you want to find local services, meats and veggies that are local ideally. And then if you can, plant your own garden, but get resourceful. Number 6, get involved locally. Find groups you can be a part of, charities you can support that are part of your community and that support your beliefs. Having people that you're going through what you're going through together makes it so much easier. And just having that support group is powerful. I find it really interesting that in our neighborhood, it's really amazing how people have really come together and are really doing things to really help different people and to really be supportive of one another. And I think the more you can have that, the better. So I hope you got some value out of this. I hope this challenged some of your thinking, some of the ways you're making decisions, encourages you to get additional information if you need it, ideally from, different sources that are not political. One of the things I'm also doing is I'm cutting back way on expenses, but I'm also supporting independent news outlets that I find to be very factual and a lot less political. Now, it's interesting because a lot of people will say, well, that's political. If they like a person, then it's political. If they don't like them, it's political. I just want information that is more factual. And I'm not going to get into all the different sources, but you can search online and it'll tell you, is this right-leaning, left-leaning, or more centrist? And I just enjoy reading those type of articles. I get a lot of financial downloads, and those are very much factual. And a lot of them lean more right because they're much more about capitalism and the economy and things like that. I think it's also important that you're getting information that is not tied to politics so that you can make informed decisions and that they're willing to call people out when they need to and they're willing to give people support when they need to. I hope you found some benefit in this, and more importantly, what I really hope is that you take some piece of information that you learned today and really apply it, because in the end, all this is about is securing you and your family's financial future. And that's my number one goal. And it always has been during my entire career, and it always will be as long as I am here on this earth able to do it. So make it great. And I really look forward to seeing you next week when we dive into fraud protection. Bye for now.